This video is intended to be a part of a series about socio-political issues and in particular the psychological, the mental health of society at large. And one of the important things I want to say right at the beginning of this series is that reality matters. Reality is important. A lot of us think that reality is, an objective reality that is common to everyone. That is not actually the truth. We cannot really know what the lived experience of anyone else is like. All we can know is what we experience, and to some extent we can communicate that experience, discuss it, and reach an agreement with another person that yes, what they experience is also similar. So this is a common experience. So this is probably the shared objective reality. What we call objective is actually more like agreement. Now, what happens when this reality is tampered with? There are many mental conditions where reality shifts, and you can see the difference in those people. You can see the damage done by losing touch with reality. For example, schizophrenics may hear things that aren't there, they may see things that are not there. People with various psychosis may either believe things that are there or be in denial of things that are actually there, things like that. These are dysfunctions because they do not match what the rest of the world around us understands reality to be. Now, what happens is we are all very loyal to what we consider reality. So, for example, if you see the sky as blue and someone tells you it's not blue, it's actually green, it's something that violates the very sense of the world as you understand it to be. And well, in a serious argument you would defend it very vocally, very aggressively, that the sky is blue. The reality is that sky is blue. And this tendency to defend with extreme effort what we consider to be reality has also resulted in the manipulation of reality being something that is done for profit. So it's not a new thing. I mean, leaders have made speeches for ages. Advertising as an agency has always been there in one form or the other, whether it was word of mouth or print ads or video ads, and now you have the internet, you have promotions, you have all kinds of things. Basically, the idea is to influence your sense of what normal is, what reality is. So, but that advertising is still a very obvious promotion. What is less obvious is what many call brainwashing, or where you warp someone's sense of reality altogether, and you literally create a situation that's not very dissimilar from, say, schizophrenia, but it is actually something that gets triggered, or that gets created in the mind of an otherwise healthy individual, someone who's not normally irrational, someone who is not normally out of touch with what one would assume reality to be. And there are many applications of this, but most of the time what you find is that such tactics are used where there is a mass reach and a profit from that mass reach to be expected. So you see it very often in politics, you see it in economic ideologies, you see it in political ideologies, you see it in nationalism, where two countries are in conflict with each other, and you have specific beliefs. So this depends a lot on stereotypes being created. And what happens is rather than, say for example, I am advocating for an identity called X, rather than speak about what would enrich X, what X needs, how X can evolve, become stronger, what I do instead is create a scapegoat, identity Y. And every time I speak of a dissatisfaction suffered by people of identity X, I blame people of identity Y for it. I create a scapegoat. For everything that is wrong, this scapegoat is to blame. So we see that in India with the people who are highly influenced by the ideology of Hindutva. They would very easily believe that anything evil happens because of Muslims. There does not have to be a reasoning for it. So if you have reports of crimes in newspapers, you may have reports of 10 crimes with nothing remarkable about them, just criminals, which will usually be Hindu names or names from mixed communities. And then you may come across one crime where all the criminals are Muslims, and then that suddenly becomes an example of how Muslims are inherently criminal. But because the Hindutva ideology has also attained power in India, and because it is so obviously dysfunctional, it gets talked about a lot. But you see this everywhere. For example, people who oppose caste prejudice are not speaking as much about what would empower, say, Dalits. Instead, they are constantly focused on the Savarnas or the Brahmins. The idea is that every problem suffered by the Dalits is because of the Brahmins, is because of the Savarnas, which is fine, but it does not actually solve the problem. This is the same thing you see with, say, Muslims, where if you have a name that is very obviously Hindu, or which a person who is known to support the BJP, anything that person says is seen as a sign of his entitlement, of his being inherently unfair, inherently prejudiced against Muslims. And if this person ever makes an actual valid observation that could enrich Muslims if they paid attention to it, they would not trust it. Even if they agreed with it, they would not trust it because it came from that person. And this is a problem because these are various different realities. Something interesting I found when Narendra Modi announced the demonetization in India was the conflict between socialists and capitalists. The capitalists denounced demonetization as an inherently socialist move, whereas the socialists pointed out that everything this government does is actually done pretty much sitting on the lap of crony capitalists. Neither capitalists nor socialists could recognize that move as belonging to their own ideology, but they recognized it very clearly as belonging to the ideology they oppose. Now, why is that? The reason for that is that that everybody realized that the move was wrong, it was bad, it was harmful, it was not helpful. So the natural inclination of their brainwashing is to assume that if it is bad, then it belongs to the ideology I oppose. And that is it. People who support capitalism very rarely show the flexibility of mind to be able to examine the harm caused by crony capitalism, even if they agree that it's bad, but they don't actually examine real life situations and say, okay, so this is a blind spot capitalism has. And the same can be said about socialists. I'm not taking any side out here. I'm simply pointing out how this ideological isolation actually creates irrational blind spots. But what is more harmful even than those blind spots is the isolation and the fragmentation of society that gets created. When India went through a partition, it was still a fairly simple matter. Muslims went to Pakistan and Hindus stayed in India, and some Muslims didn't want to go to Pakistan, they stayed in India. Some Hindus didn't want to come here, they stayed in Pakistan, whatever. But there was a general understanding of what's going on, and there was a very clear demarcation in terms of the partition of the country. What is happening today is even more dangerous, because you have a neighbor who cannot coexist with a neighbor. And you literally, now the partition exists in the minds, and you cannot physically distance these people, and they are continued, they exist in continued conflict constantly. And this is very dangerous, it is very stressful, and it is resulting in increasing aggression, increasing blame. It is resulting in a very dangerous restlessness and intolerance in society, which I will be exploring in further videos. At this point, my main concern is to point out that reality matters. No matter what ideology you believe in, you must have the ability to analyze what is going on and to be able to adapt your thoughts in a manner that is functional to that situation, rather than lose yourself in an ideology so much that that image being disturbed causes you a grave anxiety, or causes aggression, or causes denial. We are losing touch with reality because of these polarizations, and I think the situation is very critical, because this is turning into a mental health epidemic that would be very, very difficult. It's already very difficult to solve, and the more we go down this road, the more dangerous it is going to get.